A woman, in order to kill her husband and inherit a 100 million estate, actually tricked her husband into climbing to the top of a mountain to play extreme diving. After her continuous flattery and encouragement, her husband gathered his courage and jumped down directly. But after this jump, there was no more movement. The woman realized that the plan was successful and secretly rejoiced. She didn't forget to pretend to be anxious and make some insinuations. In her mobile phone, there was already recorded evidence of her husband's accident, so she could prove that she had nothing to do with her husband's death. However, just as she was happily preparing to return, the speedboat suddenly malfunctioned. It started to circle uncontrollably on the lake. Terrified, she began to scream for help desperately, but in this remote mountain area, there was no one to respond. In desperation, she pulled out the key in a panic. The speedboat stopped accordingly, but not for long, because her current position was downstream. If she did not find a way to change direction, the speedboat would soon be flushed down the waterfall along with the river. Wanting to call the police, her phone had no signal at this time. Seeing the imminent danger, she quickly took her bag, clothes, and a bottle of wine. Just when she was about to jump into the water, she remembered that she couldn't swim. Fortunately, she remembered that there was a lifebuoy at the bow of the ship. Perhaps because she was too nervous, she actually threw the lifebuoy into the water first. Realizing this, she remembered that she was still on the boat. Seeing the lifebuoy getting further and further away from her, she became extremely anxious and stomped her feet on the boat. With nowhere to go, she could only hide in the cabin, praying that she could escape by luck. In the end, the woman survived and was luckily washed ashore. After regaining consciousness, she quickly took out her mobile phone, but in this remote mountain area, she couldn't receive any signal. In despair, she could only cry out helplessly. After calming down, she checked her makeup with her mobile phone, then sat by the shore and started drinking. Talking to herself, she said that she must survive. Her husband's billion-dollar assets were waiting for her to squander back. Then she took out all the items in her bag. Apart from useless things, they were still useless things. She retouched her makeup, then put on a bright red dress and high heels, and walked westward along the riverbank based on her feeling. Even though the road was muddy, she still wanted to maintain her beauty, but as she walked, she saw a row of footprints ahead. Looking up, it turned out to be a bear. In a hurry, she took off her high heels and threw them over. Unexpectedly, it successfully aroused the bear's curiosity. Thus, she escaped a disaster. In the blink of an eye, it was nightfall. She picked up a branch and wanted to start a fire by drilling wood. But after drilling for a long time, she found it impossible. To keep warm, she had to keep moving. As a result, she suddenly saw a shadow behind a tree. Thinking it was a beast, she immediately ran away. Due to the darkness of the night, she couldn't see clearly and accidentally tripped over a branch. Then the beast chased up. It turned out to be a harmless white fox. Early in the morning, she woke up on the tree and found that the white fox was staring at her adorably. Without paying attention, she took out her mobile phone, but still couldn't receive any signal. Then she carefully climbed down from the tree. Even if her nail art fell off, she didn't care. After landing, she flipped through the photo album on her mobile phone. Seeing the food she once photographed, she swallowed saliva. Now, even a piece of vegetable leaf could satisfy her. Starving, she took out her expensive cosmetics and squeezed some onto her hand to taste. The disgusting taste made her vomit non-stop. She wanted to leave the forest but found herself lost. In desperation, she covered her eyes and decided to leave it to fate. After turning around a few times, she finally determined the direction. The white fox, seeing her pitiful state, led her to fresh water. She also found a few mushrooms on the shore. Hungry, she used her credit card to cut the mushrooms evenly, then arranged them into a plate and started eating. Unexpectedly, the taste was not bad, but she didn't know that these mushrooms were poisonous. Soon, she fell into hallucination due to poisoning. However, the toxicity was not strong, and she eventually woke up. After regaining consciousness, she continued on her journey. Suddenly, she saw smoke rising in the distance, which instantly gave her hope. Where there's smoke, there must be people. Regardless of fatigue, she hurriedly ran over. But upon arriving at the scene, she was filled with disappointment. It turned out the fire was not man-made, but a natural occurrence. Just as she was at a loss, suddenly, a big tree that had been burned down fell towards her. The heavy tree pressed her motionless. Even using all her strength, she was powerless. The thick smoke almost suffocated her. In despair, a white fox ran over. It kept digging the ground, concealing its actions. Seeing this, the woman instantly understood. She imitated the white fox's actions and started digging around her. Sure enough, it didn't take long for her to successfully crawl out from under the tree. After getting up, she hugged the white fox in gratitude, then picked up a firebrand and left the dangerous area. Next, she found a cave and lit a bonfire. This way, she wouldn't be too cold to sleep at night. But before she could fall asleep, she felt something falling on her feet. It turned out the entire cave was infested with rats. The woman, scared, immediately ran out. At this moment, it was pouring rain outside, and her meticulously applied makeup was washed away by the rain. In despair, she stood in the rain and cried out loud. I wonder if she regretted killing her husband. Perhaps this is karma. Early the next morning, the woman was awakened by the sound of a speedboat in the distance. She got up and looked, and found a speedboat passing by in the river. She quickly stood up and shouted for help, but due to the distance, the people on the boat couldn't hear her at all. She could only wave her skirt that she took off. However, the speedboat had already disappeared from sight. Fortunately, several hunters discovered the desperate woman. They rescued the woman and fed her a full meal, but looking at them, They didn't seem like good guys. Seeing the lone blonde beauty, they suddenly had evil thoughts. The woman tearfully told them about her tragic experience. She said she came here with her husband for a trip, but her husband had an accident, and she couldn't swim, which caused her to end up here. Suddenly, a speedboat appeared on the water surface in the distance. One person quickly covered the woman's mouth, not letting her make a sound. The rest of them smiled and greeted the woman on the boat. It turned out the woman driving the speedboat was a forest ranger here. After the forest ranger left, a skinny young man dragged the woman into the jungle. At this moment, the woman realized she had fallen into a den of wolves. She resisted wildly. However, a cold, sharp knife was held against her neck. The young man told her that if she wanted to live, she should be obedient. Otherwise, he would send her to join her husband. Next, they were going to whip the woman. Who would have thought? The next second, it turned out that the forest ranger had already discovered everything, and specially detoured to save the woman. When the others found that their companion was stabbed, the woman had already been taken away by the forest ranger on a speedboat. The bandits immediately pursued at full throttle. One of them picked up a hunting rifle and fired a shot at the forest ranger's titan. The woman screamed in fear. The forest ranger told her not to be afraid, that she would definitely save her. Unexpectedly, the other party's speedboat was faster. They were about to catch up. After a round of life and death chase, the forest ranger's speedboat was smoking. She could only immediately find the nearest place to dock, then urged the woman to run into the woods quickly. But at this time, the woman stupidly sat on the boat not knowing what to do. Fortunately, the forest ranger pulled her out in time. Unfortunately, the woman had been starving for days and couldn't keep up with the forest ranger's pace at all. Running and running, she couldn't run anymore. She actually complained that the forest ranger shouldn't have saved her. Originally, she wouldn't die. If caught like this, she would definitely be killed by those people. This made the forest ranger sister furious. I risked my life to save you, and you are not grateful at all, but nagging here. I'll give you a slap. Then she pinned the woman down and beat her up. This time, the woman finally behaved. She said she was willing to listen. After calming down, the forest ranger sister also pitied her, so she took her and continued to run. They went under the waterfall and washed the mud off their bodies. Then they came to the riverside, preparing to wait for a passing boat to rescue them. But until nightfall, they hadn't seen a single boat. The two of them could only rest nearby for the night. Thanks to the forest ranger's fishing skills, the woman also had a full meal. Early the next morning, the forest ranger found some firewood, then set up traps, because those bad guys would definitely find this place. But the woman wasn't worried at all. Instead, she started applying makeup on the other side. Then the forest ranger lit the pile of firewood, waiting for the villains to fall into the trap. Sure enough, the group of people saw the thick smoke in the distance and rushed over here. But at this time, both of them had disappeared without a trace. This is the so-called strategy of luring the tiger away from the mountain. At this moment, a big guy found a mask hanging on the tree and happily tore it off. Unexpectedly, the next moment, the boss immediately realized they had fallen into an ambush. On the other side, the woman and the forest ranger had come in front of the villain's speedboat. The woman actually sat on the boat directly, waiting for the forest ranger to push the boat into the water. This way, the sister couldn't push it at all. Anxiously, she shouted at the woman to get down and help. The woman then realized to use the paddle to help, but she couldn't exert any strength at all. At this time, the villains had already chased over. The boss fired a shot, hitting the forest ranger's thigh. She used her last bit of strength, finally pushing the speedboat into the river. But she herself was caught by several villains. The woman, however, hid on the boat from beginning to end, not daring to show her head. The poor sister was dragged ashore by several villains. Looking at the gradually disappearing small boat, she could only curse silently, and the woman, with an ungrateful heart, left this troublesome place with the flow of water. The forest ranger's sister was dragged into the jungle by two villains. The forest ranger was not panicking at all, saying that she had mountain gods protecting her. Then, as if possessed by a deity, she started chanting. Soon the jungle was ravaged by fierce winds, and heavy rain poured down. The boss quickly went up to choke her neck, telling her to stop shouting. The next moment, he was knocked down by a gun butt from the fat man behind him. Because he believed the forest ranger's words, he was afraid of retribution. The two of them successfully killed several villains. The woman inherited hundreds of millions of assets as desired. To express gratitude to the forest ranger's sister, she took the sister to indulge in debauchery every day. From then on, they lived a shameless and happy life.